What's up, everybody? It's Snak Pak, and yes, I am back. I took a little bit of a sabbatical, had some stuff going on in life. I was working on some things, and I'm back in here with you guys today with a review of the new Miltech Simulations MH-60. Now, I've been waiting for this for quite a while. They didn't release a UH-60, they just released an MH-60. Now, there's several variants that you can choose from. And maybe at the end of the video I'll show you a couple of those. But Miltech was kind enough to send this to me. They sent it to me like the day before it came out, and unfortunately I've just been too busy with work and stuff to be able to get this video out until today. So I messed with it a little bit yesterday, and today I'm going to do a kind of like a first look of basically what my opinion is so far as to where this thing is right now. So this is the presidential model, all right, the, I guess it's Marine One, they call it the White Hawk. So this is presumably what the president will be riding on, or the vice president. Looking pretty good so far. So this is, again, I'm a UH-60, if you guys don't know, I'm a UH-60 Black Hawk instructor pilot. I was in the Army for about 10 years, and then I got out about a year ago, and now I'm a contractor, and I teach at the Army's flight school, and I teach people how to fly Black Hawk, UH-60 Mike Black Hawks. So this is a MH-60. It's a little bit different, but I mean, a Black Hawk's a Black Hawk. Now, when you look at the ICAO designation of a Sikorsky H-60, they call it a S-70, right? So that's what I actually have on my commercial pilot certificate. I have a type rating in S-70, so I'm good to fly any of these basically, right? But there's all kinds of variants. So the Army has the most, and we have UH-60 Limas and as well as Mikes. And the Mike models are the newer versions that we've had for came out about 12 years ago, something like that. I think it's a little bit longer than that. Sorry, it's actually about like it came out in like 2007, I believe, is when we started implementing the UH-60 Mikes. But this one is more akin to a Lima, UH-60 Lima, as far as the engine. We have what we would call the HIRS, or Hover Infrared Suppression System, versus like the UH-60 Mikes that the Army uses now has an upswept exhaust, right? And a few other modifications, right? We have a little bit different stabilator, and some things are different here. But overall, a Black Hawk is a Black Hawk. This would be a White Hawk, I think they call it, for the presidential version. All right, and then there's the Seahawk and the Jayhawk and all these things, right? The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment uses MH-60s. I think they have a little bit upgraded power, upgraded engines to them. So I think you'll actually run out of left pedal before you run out of torque on these things, right? So very, very powerful aircraft. So what we're going to do, I just removed all the covers, and I just wanted to give you like an outside look. It looks like this is the hoist mechanism. There's a FLIR on here on the front. There's all kinds of cool bells and whistles here. This is not a static port, okay? So I don't know why they call those covers a static port cover, but just doing a little walk around. This is, yeah, that's the static port, right? These are your pitot-static tubes up here, right? But just giving it a good look around here. The modeling is awesome. Even little things like, so here's our door, little gunner window. This little flap right here doesn't actually come down, but you can see what I'm pointing at right here with these little hooks. This would flap down and create a step. A little step comes out of there, and that's how we actually climb up onto the helicopter. Alternatively, you can come climb up over here. There's, well, I guess they didn't model it. There's some steps you can step on right here. Actually, they're kind of like hidden right there, but yeah, and this is where we get fuel, and coming all the way down the backside. There's a few antennas here, some lights, our tail boom. This big hunk right here, this big flap with the star on it, this is what we call our stabilator. So it's kind of like a mix between a stabilizer and a elevator, essentially, right? They call it a stabilator. And a lot of like commercial jets have stabilators as well, right? But it just helps us stay level in the longitudinal axis. All right, and then there's our beautiful tail rotor. And you can see the tail rotor is actually canted a little bit on H-60. believe it or not, this tail rotor, any of you who understand how helicopters work, right, you know that any helicopter with a single rotor requires a tail rotor to prevent it from spinning out of control, and it also allows us to yaw the aircraft. But since the Blackhawk's tail rotor is canted a little bit, believe it or not, it actually helps generate a little bit of lift. So some of the lift that this aircraft makes is actually coming from the tail rotor. Pretty cool. All right, and there's our tail wheel. Now the tail wheel has a little lock pin in it, and basically this little lock pin, we have a little switch inside, and the lock pin is right there. Let me see if I can point right at it here. I don't know if I can zoom in, but anyway, that's the tail wheel lock pin, and that comes up. It'll be actuated with a little switch inside the cockpit, and then that makes this, you can think of it like it makes it from a back shopping cart wheel to a front shopping cart wheel. All right, so it'll allow it to swivel, and it'll allow us to turn while we ground taxi. All right, and then obviously you have the other engine exhaust right here. Now this right here is the APU exhaust. So the APU, most big aircraft have an APU, and it's basically just a tiny jet engine that we use as basically a power source, right? But we're also going to use it to start the engines. We need air to come off of that APU, the exhaust air really, bleed air, to help get our engines started, right? Because we got two big jet engines in there. And a lot of people wonder, like, how does a jet engine turn a rotor disc, right? Well, any helicopter that has a jet engine, essentially, jet engine, if you're familiar with how it works in like a fighter jet, it sucks, squeeze, bang, blow, right? Sucks in air, it squeezes it, compresses it, then we set it on fire and then inject a bunch of fuel in there, and we have this big flame, and then it blows out the back, and that's how like a fighter jet propels itself forward. But instead of that, there's an additional turbo fan on the back, and it spins that fan really fast, and that's connected to a drive shaft that connects up into the transmission, right? And so we got two of them, so if one of them fails, you know, believe it or not, probably going to be okay, right? It depends on your performance and power situation, but more than likely it would take a lot of gross weight and a very hot day and very high altitude environment for us to not be able to function on just one engine, right? Obviously, we want both of them working because we have all the power available to us that we would ever want, right? But you know, if one of these engines quits, like it's really not the end of the world. And that's one of the things I teach on a daily basis is what to do in the event that one of those things quits, right? So what I'm going to do now, now that you guys got a good look at it, it's a pretty darn good looking aircraft, all right? And again, there's there's 3 different variants and a ton of liveries. I haven't even checked them all out yet. They got like Firehawks, and they got ones with missiles on them, and I haven't even scratched the surface with like checking out all the missions that you can do with this. So there's going to be future videos I'm going to do on this and go more in depth, but this is just kind of like our first look. So I thought this one would be pretty cool, the Marine One helicopter, and it's one of the more basic ones, right, without a whole lot of bells and whistles to deal with, because a lot of this stuff, as a Army Blackhawk pilot, we didn't even have a lot of this stuff, right? Our med evac helicopters have a FLIR that I think is similar to this one, but I never flew any of the med helicopters. I was always like in assault battalions and stuff. So some of this stuff I'm just not familiar with, some of the additional equipment. But again, a Blackhawk's a Blackhawk, so I'm going to get in here and start it up how I normally would, with a couple caveats, because I wasn't able to start it up yesterday just by moving the switches and making it work like I would be able to in a regular a Blackhawk essentially, right? And again, there's differences, but it's really as simple as this. You turn the batteries on, then that will enable you to turn the APU on, and once you have the APU on, then you can start the engines, and then everything else is just electronics, avionics, and stuff you're turning on, you know. But it wasn't quite that simple. There's a couple extra steps that I had to go through. I had to pull out the Miltech checklist and enable some things for their code to work properly to get the engines to start right. One of them is basically I had to put the rotor brake on, which like you wouldn't have to do that in a real helicopter, right? Like you can start it without the rotor brake. And the boost pumps and some things that, you know, aren't really, it shouldn't be required. But, you know, if there's any MH pilots out there who tell me that you guys have to have the boost pumps on to start this thing, I'd be really curious about that. Because as far as I understand, in any H-60, like the boost pumps they basically provide a positive pressure, whereas the engines are normally sucking negative pressure, kind of like sucking up through a straw. They're sucking up fuel up into the engines, and you don't need the boost pumps on to start this thing, but it's part of the Miltech checklist, and I guess this thing won't start. I could have it wrong, but as far as I can tell, it won't start without those on. So with a couple of those caveats, we're just going to hop in here and get this thing cranking. And I'm not even going to use the Miltech checklist. I'm just going to start this thing cold. Obviously, in real life, I would always use a checklist, but my operator checklist that I use I can't release to the public. It's not like super secret or anything. I'm just not allowed to release it to anyone. But I'm just going to do like without the checklist kind of cold start here. So, all right, let's hop in and check out the interior. Also, please have mercy on my video here. I just updated my NVIDIA broadcast software, and now I get like awful frame rates with my camera. So at least the Microsoft Flight Simulator should give us a pretty good frame rate here. Okay, so here's the interior, and again, I fly a slightly different version. So this cockpit layout is a little different than what I'm normally used to. It's almost kind of like a blend between a UH-60 mic and a Lima, but of course there's like a lot of extra bells and whistles, and there's this whole center display right here is like something I'm just not super used to. So, but I messed around with it enough yesterday, and I'll be able to kind of walk you guys through it. Up here, you have a lot of control switches, right? These rheostats, right? These knobs, we call them a rheostat. It's all for lighting, all right? Up here, you got all your anti-ice. We have windshield anti-ice, engine anti-ice, pitot anti-ice, pitot heat, basically, right? This all is just for flying in icing conditions. All these little things right here with the little numbers on them, they're just circuit breakers, okay? And you got a bunch behind your head here, and there should be some down here as well, right? Those are just circuit breakers, and we never mess with those in flight. If one of them pops, then it's like, okay, we have an electrical issue, but there's a lot of stuff in here that it might seem intimidating because there's so many things hooked up here and so many buttons and switches, but a lot of these are just like circuit breakers that we don't ever really use unless it's for some kind of maintenance function. All right, coming up here, you got some cargo hook stuff. I'm not going to be messing with that today. Right here is your APU fire T handle. All right, so if we had an APU fire, we'd yank that sucker down. We got more lighting switches. These are like our external light switches. All right. And then in the center here, this is where we're going to be actuating some switches because this is how we turn our battery on, get our APU on, our generators. All right, this is like the main area where we're going to be working. So all the rest of this stuff is really kind of like irrelevant. And then also right here is our throttle quadrant. So these are the power control levers, and then these are the fuel selectors, right? So the fuel selector, you're either going to be in off if you need to cut the fuel off in the event of a fire or something, right? You got that. Then you can go direct, so there's two fuel cells in the back, all right, and each engine sucks from its fuel cell, but you can also go to crossfeed, and that's actually how we're going to start it. And we'll put these fuel selectors into crossfeed, and then it'll suck from the tank on the other side, all right. And then so our power control levers, we have off, you have idle, and then you have fly, and fly is all the way forward. Well, not all the way forward. It's basically all the way forward, and that once you put it in fly, Miltech, the checklist talks about how it has a governor. Basically, that's true. All right, the engine has a control unit that once those power control levers are in fly, and basically the engine will monitor itself. And when I pull up on the collective here, when I pull up on that collective, a lot of things are going to happen. But basically, anytime you increase collective on a helicopter, you're increasing the blade pitch, right? So the pitch of these rotor blades is going to increase collectively so that we can, climb. But that's going to require more power, or else they're going to slow down, right? Because anytime you increase angle of attack, you're also going to increase drag. We have to overcome that drag. That means the engines have to work harder. So if the PCLs are in fly, then the engine's going to take care of that itself, right? It's going to monitor itself. You also have the starter buttons, which are right here. There they go, those little guys right there. All right. Coming down, we have our instrument display. You got two big screens here. I'm going to get rid of this little EFB, you don't need that. You got a primary flight display and then like a multifunction display on both sides, all right? And there's little knobs at the top to turn those on and off, and there's all kinds of buttons over here. I have a somewhat different multifunction display than the ones I fly, so I'm not super familiar with how these work, but it basically gives us all the same information. Over here we have some standby instruments, and this altimeter is hilarious right here, so we're gonna have fun playing with this later. And then down here is our lower console, and this has everything from radios to our, moving on right here, this, let me see if I can get this thing to stop. There we go. We have radios. This is a backup control head for our, it should be the COM3 radio. Over here we got boost pumps, and when we see external aux switch, this is transferring. You can, if we had external tanks, this is how you would transfer the fuel from the external tanks into the main tanks. All right, fuel dump switch. Okay, cool. This right here is the HUD. All right, a heads-up display control unit. This is the old school one. In the one that I fly, UH-60 Mike, we haven't integrated into our flight management system, but this is like the old school that we used to have on a Lima. This is one of the questions I had. If you saw any of my videos over talking about the Washington, D.C. accident that happened back in January, they were flying a Lima, and they would have had this HUD control unit. So I was curious as to whether they were using the HUD or not, because on this old school one, you actually had to adjust. I think it was with this adjust switch right here. You actually had to adjust the altitude, the barometric altitude, to match like what it was actually saying, referencing on your actual barometric altimeter. So that was it was a big question I had, is whether they were using the HUD and whether they had that thing calibrated correctly, because I remember having to do that back in my Lima days. Okay, here is a temperature control unit. I don't have one of these in my Black Hawk. I just sweat like crazy in the middle of the summer. It's awful. All right, then coming up here, you have some hydraulic controls. So we have a backup pump. This is a gust lock. That should be off. And then we have a tail servo, which should just be on norm. All right, so we're going to leave that on norm. Oh, yeah, by the way, over here, these are blade folds. You can do some cool stuff with that. I don't have this on my helicopter. Blade de-ice. I think these blade fold ones are for like putting this on a aircraft carrier. So a lot of these are more like Navy, Air Force aircraft that, you know, again, I'm an Army guy, so we just have a different configuration, you know. Okay, blade de-ice, if we need it, we're going to turn that off. All right, what is this? Mission power, ISD power. I'm not really sure what this is for, but computer power, I think we're just going to turn all these on. EGIs. I can't remember in the checklist if they have you do this now, or in the Miltech checklist if they have to do this now or later, but I'm just going to turn them on now. Okay, stores, jettison, pylons. This is where you can, if there's anything on your pylons, if you have wings attached to like external fuel tanks, you can pop them off here. Again, this is just volume for radios. Moving on, we already talked about the hydraulics. Right here is the stabilator. So that was that big wing in the back I was telling you about, that big stabilator on the back. And we're just going to have this in the auto mode, but you can actually manually slew it. And then on the cyclic control, I don't know if it's modeled. I can't see it. Yeah, there's supposed to be a little trigger right here for your pinky where you can control it as well. But there's a little test button and all kinds of stuff. Okay, moving on. AMCM coupler. Tow, yeah, I don't know what that is. Tow, heading, ground speed. I'm not sure what that is. AMCM coupler. It might be like an automatic flight control system. All right, AFCS failure advisory. This will tell you if you have any issues with your AFCS. You can just kind of reset them. And then SAS. All right, SAS boost switch. You definitely want that on. A lot of this stuff right here is like automatic flight control systems, and I have a different system than the one I fly in real life, but we'll be playing with this another day. Now up here, SAS1, trim, SAS1, SAS2, trim. Make sure you have these three on, all right? Autopilot is different. If you wanted to work the autopilot, then you can turn that on and you can use some of these functions. But if you're just flying manually, just make sure you have these 3 switches on, right? After we get the engine started, we'll have some power and we'll start going with that. But make sure you have those on. These are what help provide stability to the aircraft. All right, so with that, let's get this thing started. All right, let me see if I can readjust my, there we go. Okay, so first things first, we are going to turn our batteries on. So bat's coming on. And then you can see I've got some electrical power, right? I can actually turn on my MFDs now. In my Black Hawk, there's only one of these I'll be able to turn on just with the battery. I need like I need AC power from the APU or the generators in order to get the rest of them on. But typically, if you're just on battery power, it's only going to power like minimal things because it'll eat up your charge, right? So we need like a more steady source of electricity to really get a lot of things going. But okay, next we got to turn the APU on, and in order to do that, there is let's see, air source heat switch. I'm going to put this on APU, but I actually don't need it to get the APU started. All right, we're just putting it on APU for later, and that just means the APU is going to pressurize our pneumatic system, which will allow us to start the engines. Now, fuel pump, we're going to go, oh, whoops, I went the wrong way. We're going to go APU boost is back, and now I'm delivering fuel to the APU, and then I go APU control switch on. All right. Now coming down here, I'm going to see some advisories, cautions, and warnings. You see that just says APU on now. All right. Okay, I just turned the sound down a little bit so I can hear myself think here. All right, so now I've got the APU on. And sorry, I've got my head tracking on, so I'm trying to make this work as smoothly as I can here for you. All right, APU on advisory. That means I can turn the APU generator on next, right? So zoom out, we'll come back up here. Whoops. All right, and then I can go ahead and turn these generators on. They're not going to do anything yet. These are my main generators. Once I get the actual engine started, I'll get power from my generators. But here's my APU generator, so I'll turn that sucker on. And then now I should have APU Gen, right? So there's another advisory. I have APU Gen, so we are good to go. So basically right now, like I'm ready to crank the engines, right? I've got the APU on, which is giving me electricity from the APU generator, and it's also providing a air source to pressurize my pneumatic system so I can start my engines. Before I do that, I'm gonna come over here and turn my SAS trim on, and I'm gonna turn on the auto control for my stabilator. So all that's on, and you see it's got a little on green switch, right? So we're good to go, and that's like really all I should need here. Now, it's actually not all I need. I need to turn my boost pumps on, and again, I don't think you would really need those in the real aircraft. Now I need to turn the rotor brake on, which is this sucker right here. So check this out. This is the rotor brake. If let's see, you see there's a little gauge up here for pressure. So you would just pull this down a little bit, and this is actually how you would stop the rotor, like after you turn the engines off. But what they want me to do here in the checklist is put this all the way on, which you can lock it in position like that. And this is like, you know, if I was leaving the aircraft and walking inside somewhere to go pay for gas or something and go get lunch, I just go ahead and lock that into position there. But they want me to do a rotor brake start every time, which you can start the engines against the rotor brake, but you don't have to. So, but this is required, or else the engines won't start correctly. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to start engine 1. I got to put my fuel selectors into crossfeed. So fuel selectors are in crossfeed. By the way, you'll see there's these other T handles here. Those are for if you have an engine fire. You would just pull those back, right? It looks like those are not implemented, so it doesn't look like I can click on them. So, oh, and then last thing, I got to turn my engine ignition switch on right here. Boom. So it says norm. Engine ignition switch is on norm. So I have air coming from the APU. APU generator is on. I have air coming from there. I've got fuel coming from my fuel selectors right here, and then I've got the spark coming from my engine ignition switch on, right? So that's air, fuel, and spark. Those are the three magical ingredients I need to start a fire, right? Or a controlled fire, which is going to get up to temperatures upwards of you know, close to 800 or 900 degrees Celsius, which is well over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit inside those engine cowlings, right? So it's going to get super hot in there. There's going to be a lot of fuel burn, a lot of energy, and a lot of power that's going to come out of those engines. All right, so we're going to start the number 1 engine. I'm going to push the starter button. And you're going to see the blades start turning here, which is weird. They shouldn't be because the rotor brake is engaged. They shouldn't be turning at all. The rotor brake should hold them steady, so I'm not sure why they have those moving yet. But I come inside and I've got 1 starter. Trying my best to keep this stable for you guys. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've got 1 starter. All right, that means engine 1 starter's engaged. And I had a rise in NG, and this is the compressor section of the engine. So you see on the left, there's 2 of them, one for the number 1 engine, one for the number 2 engine. And the NG is risen. They want you to check your TGT, which is going to be over here. Your TGT should be below 80. And I don't know why that keeps doing that. I don't know why my, oh, okay, it looks like my right mouse click button also moves the rotor brake, so that's not good. Well, anyway, TGT is below 80, it's at 56. So now we can advance this PCL to idle. So you're just going to move it to its first detent, and you hear this low, bassy humming noise. That's that jet engine starting up. So that's pretty cool. Eventually that starter caution goes away. There it goes. All right, and that means that we had a good start on engine 1. There's a couple things you want to check for. Make sure TGT doesn't spike up too high. All right, everything's good. The Miltech checklist will walk you through what you're looking for here. All right, that means it's time to start number 2. Number 2 starter's engaged. I've got number 2 starter advisory. I've got a rise in NG, and the TGT is below 80. So now I'm going to advance the sucker to idle. For all my Mike model pilots who never flew a Lima, they're probably screaming at me. They're like, TGT below 30, not 80. And well, it was different in the Lima. All right, there's actually a different TGT bias on this one. So, and this is basically, it's kind of like a decked out Lima. All right, cool. So that starter's good. I'm getting a master caution because I've got some new stuff here. Now what they want me to do is release the rotor brake. So now we're going to release the rotor brake, and then you're going to see the blades start spinning a lot faster. There we go. It's literally a brake in there. So we're at idle right now, and like the aircraft can't take off like this. All right. Your main goal before you take off is you have to get rid of this thing that says low rotor RPM, and right in the middle of your primary flight display, you'll see you have this little power pod over here, right? So let's talk about what we're seeing here. TGT is the temperature of your engines, all right? If you start to see this go yellow or red, that's bad. You're overheating your engines. Torque is how much power you're actually applying from the engines to the main transmission, right? Remember, 1 and 2, because you got 2 engines. Now, NP 1 and 2, these are going to be on the side, and those should be at 100, and then NR is in the middle, all right? NP is the speed of your engines, how fast they're spinning, right? We just use a percentage. So if it's at 100%, you're good. How many RPMs is that? I don't know, all right? It's the engine's spinning really fast. You want it 100%. If both NPs are at 100%, then the NR should also be at 100%, all right? So we're good. Now, right now, they're saying 94 and 94 on NP. They would not be that high right now at idle, all right? So definitely not the correct values right now. My NG would be a lot higher than, well, I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, the other things over here, transmission, oil and temperature, engine oil, temperature, and pressure, you have for 1 and 2. The bottom line is, guys, if these are green, then you're good, okay? So right now I've got some red over here in NP, and that's just because I'm at idle, all right? Really cool feature here is this dash vibrating like this. It's super cool, right? That's very realistic, and you would actually definitely see that in the aircraft, right? So with that, we're going to come over here and we're going to start advancing our PCLs to fly. I would do this a little slower than that, all right? But now we're going to watch this very, very slow creep of our rotor come up. And this would actually not take nearly this long, right? By now, my NR would already be at like 100%. It would only take like 5 or 10 seconds to get there. But you can see this number 46 is just slowly creeping up. And NP's at 102 on both engines. And then something happens here, and I guess I just need to get back into the Miltech checklist because I don't know what the problem is or what I'm doing wrong. But I think it's got to be something in the code. But basically right now I would see NPs would both be at 100 and NR should be at 100 by now, but it's just slowly creeping up. I don't know why it's taking so long. NGs would be probably around 88 right now. Remember, NG is your compressor. TGT is actually the hot section of the engine. NP is, if you think about suck, squeeze, bang, blow, this is the blow section where the back of the engine is blowing on that turbo shaft and spinning the shaft really fast. Where the shaft connects to the transmission is torque. Here's this drop in NP. I don't know why it does that. So now the NPs are at 80. I don't know what I did wrong, but NR's at 102. So like, okay, we're gonna go with that. All right, and with that, we should be able to taxi on out of here. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna release the park and brake. Oh geez. Okay, let's release this park and brake, and then I'm gonna put this tail wheel switch. Right now it's on lock. I'm going to unlock it. Okay, and then let's see what that did here. So now I should be able to, yeah, you see that tail wheel? Cool, so I'm just applying pedal force, and you can actually just turn this thing around like this. This is no problem. You can really do this in real life. You can just turn it around 360. Pretty cool. I'm just applying pedal force there. By the way, I'm at Geneva Municipal Airport. This is in Geneva, Alabama. Or is it Florida? I can't remember. It's pretty much on the border between Florida and Alabama, the southeast Alabama. So I just applied a little bit of collective force here, and I should be able to push a little bit of forward cyclic, and then should start going here. There we go. Uh-oh, a little too much collective. Oh yeah, I get these really annoying audio callouts from, I guess, the co-pilot or something, telling me I'm at 5 feet, 10 feet, pull up, pull up. I got to figure out how to turn it off because it's awful. All right, we're going to come on to the center line here. And then I'll just kind of straighten out. And then I can, at this point, I can come over here and lock my tail wheel up. And now you'll see that the tail wheel doesn't swivel anymore. And if I actually put like a strong pedal force like this, I would just break the tail wheel lock pin. There's a little lock pin in there. We break them all the time. Well, the students break them all the time, and we make fun of them for it. And they're not super expensive. They're really easy to fix. It's just a little pin that it's like this big. But yeah, if with that thing locked, if I put an excessive pedal force in, I would just snap that little lock pin. So, all right, let's try to fly this thing around a little bit. Okay, so here we go. We're at Geneva Municipal, taking off from the runway. I actually just did a hot start. I just reloaded it to where it was already started up, because now these systems seem to be reading correctly here. So if I come down here, my NR is at 101, NP's at 96. I'm not really sure why that is. I'm pulling some power. So I start pulling in torque. I'm off the ground at 16% torque. There's no way that would happen, right? It's going to take a lot more torque than that to come off the ground. So some of these indications aren't really calibrated correctly, I don't think, not yet. Okay, One cool thing is this standby magnetic compass really works. It's pretty awesome. Let me hit the brakes here. Now, if you take off in this aircraft and you just pull up on the collective here, start pulling collective, you're going to notice that it just starts coming forward, right? And it wouldn't tilt forward like this, like the nose wouldn't tilt forward.
5 feet.
But it would take off, and you would have forward momentum as you take off, right? That's correct. And the reason is because the rotor disc on the Blackhawk is actually tilted forward about 3 degrees. And you can kind of see it here, right? But it's already tilted forward. And I addressed this in one of the videos I was talking about in that Washington, D.C. mid-air crash. But we would actually, if you're doing like about 100 knots, you'll be level attitude, right? And the rotor disc itself just tilts forward on a Blackhawk or on a MH-60, whatever this is, right? So if I want to come straight up, what I'm going to have to do is actually pull the Cyclic back a little bit. And I'm going to lift the main landing gear, which is the wheels in the front. I'm going to lift those off the ground first. And then the tail will come up. And then now I'm hovering, right? Now, a good secret to hovering, here's the deal, guys. In the simulator, if you're not using a VR headset, it's very challenging to hover a helicopter, all right? But
10 feet.
the thing is, it's really all about the references that you're using, right? I mean, even I can't hold it perfect here, and I got some really good peripherals, you know.
10 feet, 5 feet.
This freaking co-pilot is driving me crazy. I just want to throw her out the side of the helicopter, like.
10 feet.
Co-pilot is there a co-pilot jettison switch? Can I just seriously, if I had somebody next to me saying that the whole time, I would probably stab them to death. It's so annoying. All right, I'll figure out how to turn that off for future videos. Hopefully Miltech gave us a way to do that. Back to hovering, I'm looking forward and I'm trying to just see, I can drift laterally like this to the side, and I'm trying to maintain it as best I can, like right over the center line, right? And try not to over control. But you can see I'm drifting forward this whole time, right?
10 feet.
So you kind of have to look back and forth. If you're in virtual reality, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain your references here. All right? The key, though, is don't over control the aircraft. I'm just putting in small little inputs here, and now I'm relatively stable at a hover here, and you kind of have to look out to the side to see if you're drifting forward or aft. So that's really the secret, guys, and this is really the same thing when you're flying in real life. In real life, it's a lot easier because, you know, you have your full peripheral vision, and I can like see off the corner of my eye if I'm drifting forward or aft. You can't really do that in these simulators, right? If you're using VR, it's definitely better. But this is very similar to what it's like to fly with NVGs, because I only have this tiny little field of view in front of me, and so I have to train the students. That's what I do, is I train the night students, right? I have to train them to, oh my God, she's killing me. I'm just gonna come up a little bit higher so she'll shut the hell up. Anyway, I train my students that you have to continuously scan all around you to get good references to be able to hold a good hover. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take off now. Looks like we're taking off to the east. Should be runway 110 at Geneva County. And that means that the city of Geneva should be right over here. So how much torque do I have applied here? 57%. Let me pull in all the way. So I've got the collective all the way up, and my torque reading right now is 70%. That would not be the case. That is not how that works. All right. There's some baseball fields right in front of me at night. Those baseball fields are like the brightest thing in this whole area. It's really easy to find the airport if you just find the baseball fields. Those lights are ridiculous. Now, one thing you might notice out of the corner of your eye is this standby altimeter, okay, which looks like it's this little guy right here, this little standby altimeter. This thing, I'm sorry, let me see, right about here is where it should be for you guys on your cursor. That thing is going crazy, all right? To Miltech, I think you guys got the code for that altimeter, like you got an extra 0 or you need to add a 0 somewhere, because watch as I climb, those are in hundreds of feet, but it looks like it's counting in tens of feet. and that's why that altimeter is going crazy like that. So I think there's like an extra 0 or something in the code. So anyhow, that's kind of silly. All right, now overall, let me see here. My head tracking stopped for some reason, not sure why. So as far as flying this aircraft, I got the trim working nice here. Let me see if I can get my head tracking back on here. That went away. It looks like it just stopped. There we go. All right, head tracking's back. So let's talk about controllability of this aircraft. All right, check this out. I changed the sensitivity on my joystick to be as sensitive as it could possibly go, and you'll see that on the Cyclic, when I move mine all the way to the right, it moves this all the way forward, back, left, and right, and look how slow the aircraft responds. In a real aircraft, it would respond probably like 2 to 3 times faster, right? I hate how every time somebody makes a new Black Hawk for DCS or Microsoft Flight Simulator or whatever it is, they're always so sluggish. It's just like it's not a 747. It's an incredibly responsive aircraft. So this thing, like if I were to put, I'll just say this here, we're straight and level. I'm gonna put full left Cyclic. Right now I'd be upside down if it was a real Black Hawk, right? Or a real Jayhawk, whatever this is. Full right Cyclic, we'd be in an aileron roll right now, right? We would be completely upside down. So this thing is probably 2 to 3, maybe 3 times more responsive than what you're going to feel in this aircraft. I'm not sure if there's a way to change that. I know I can change the sensitivity on my joystick, but I don't know if I can change the sensitivity of the aircraft, right? And I know it's not just me because I can pull up my tablet and go to aircraft. Let's see, flight performance. Looks like we weigh 26,000 pounds. So let me take all the cargo out. Now we're down to 15,000. So now it's basically an empty aircraft, and it's still the same thing. Like, did I do that right? Do I have to apply it? Load aircraft. There we go. So yeah, I mean, I'm going like full throttle here on the collective, and you know, so it's not as nearly as responsive as it would be in real life, right? These things are the Maserati of Blackhawks, of helicopters rather. They're definitely incredibly responsive aircraft. So here's another thing. I want to fly Nap of the Earth. I love to fly low level, all right? This is like what we do in the military. We fly these things right over the treetops. And as I get down here,
pull up, pull up.
I'm going to hear pull up, pull up.
Pull up, pull up.
Over and over again. So
pull up, pull up.
I'm just not even going to bother with that anymore because I want to throw that person out of the aircraft, right? So if anybody can tell me in the comments how I might be able to turn that off, that would be freaking awesome. All right. So let's come down here. This is a river that I like to take my students to. We fly this at night all the time. Sometimes you'll see fishing boats and stuff coming out here at night with their floodlights on out here fishing. Can't remember what river this is. Here, hang on one second, I'll tell you. What is this river? It's the Choctaw. It's the Choctawhatchee River. Yeah, Choctawhatchee. Choctawhatchee River. Give me a shout out, any of my homies who live over near the Choctawhatchee River. So I can't get too low or they'll scream at me, which is miserable.
Pull up, pull up.
No, not pulling up. All right, so hopefully we can figure out.
Roll left.
Hopefully we can figure out how to turn that audio off because that is just absolutely miserable. All right. So let's we'll put it down in this field over here, and maybe we'll shut it down. Let's say this is our little destination. Oh yeah, by the way, okay, let's add. I'm full power right now. You would see some indications on here. You would see torque way up here with like in the red. You would see TGT in the red. We would actually over temp the engines. All right, and then when I drop the collective all the way out, collective's all the way bottomed out here, right? Let me see if I can show you.
Power, power.
And look at this. I get like, it doesn't work anymore. The Cyclic doesn't work anymore unless you have collective in there. That's not a real thing, right? I practice auto rotations every day with my students where we bottom the collective out, and you're still going to be able to move the helicopter around, all right? You're still going to be able to bank and pitch and all that stuff, all right? So then if I do bottom the collective out, my rotor should climb because I'm in an auto rotation here. So this is my best auto I can really do with this thing. All right, let's come in and land. Make sure when you're coming in to land, guys, in helicopters and these simulators, like look off to the side to see your rate of closure, because otherwise you're just gonna come in, you're just gonna burn it in, right? But I think that's the main issue that makes it challenging to fly these things in simulators is flying really slow, really close to the ground.
20 feet.
Okay.
10 feet. 5 feet.
And we'll set her down nice and gentle like. Okay, cool. Great, so now I think I have the APU. Is the APU still on? Let me turn the APU on. Fuel pump switch, APU boost, APU control switch on. Turn the APU on. There's the advisory. Turn the generator on. Oh wait, generator was already on. Okay. All right, so now I can turn my main generators off because I got the APU generator on. Yeah, go ahead, go back. Not test, just off. Okay, now I can pull these back to idle. All right, so the engines are coming back to idle. You can see my NPs drop out. All right, and then let's go ahead and we'll pull this engine off. Pull this engine off. My fuel selector's off. Can't see that other one. Engine ignition switch is off. That should have been on, I think. Okay, and then I guess I have to put the rotor brake on now, which if I did it right now, I would absolutely demolish the rotor brake. You can see my NR's at 99 still, which I have no idea how that's possible because I have no engines on. All right, so we'll just, yeah, we'll just destroy the rotor brake here. Turn that sucker on. See, we're yawing. That's actually pretty cool. We're yawing. That would actually happen. I put so much force on that rotor brake. All right, cool. Let me turn that off. And at this point, I can turn off my APU generator. I'll turn the APU itself off. Turn the fuel pump off, and then we can turn the battery off. Come on. All right, I should have turned these off too, these little flight displays. Okay, let's get out. Okay, so overall, I'm going to say right now this thing is like a 7 out of 10, and it has the potential to be a 10 out of 10. Now, granted, I haven't even started looking at the missions or some of the other variants. All right, let's take a quick look. We'll go to the main menu, and we'll take a quick look at some of the other variants that you can pick for this sucker. All right, so I think it was over. Oh, there it was. Where'd it go? Configure. Okay, so we have the MH-60 Sierra, and different liveries you can get for that is that Marine one. You got this pink one, Screamin' India. Firehawks. What's this one? Is this Iraqi Air Force? Tridents, Coast Guard, I think. really cool liveries. I got digital camo. Okay, and then we have the MH-60 Romeo, and I'm not gonna lie, guys, I don't even know what the difference is. Okay, so these are the Seahawks. Okay, cool. Yeah, all right. And then we have the Tango, MH-60 Tango, and this thing looks amazing. So, super cool liveries with this. For the price, I think this thing's like not even 40 bucks. Dude, what you get for that 40 bucks is incredible. Fictional. This is a fictional one? Okay. Elizabeth City, U.S. Coast Guard. Dude, these things look amazing. So, and then, yeah, you can change fuel and passengers and everything, cargo. I would just delete all the cargo. I don't know why we need that. So anyhow, I give this, where it stands right now, I'm just giving it a 7 out of 10 because of some of the inconsistencies with the flight instruments and the fact that it just flies so sluggishly, right? Like, I just wish I had reached out to Miltech and asked them if like I could consult with them a little bit on this project when I knew they were developing it for like the past year, and maybe I just didn't get through to the right people, but I really wanted to consult with them and you know, help them make this thing awesome. It just needs to be a lot more responsive. That's like my biggest concern. All right, I'm sure there's a way to turn off the co-pilot voice, which was like the most annoying thing about the whole mod so far. So I'm gonna read in their little guide and see if I can get that turned off, right? And then other than that, just little inconsistencies, just like the instruments aren't really calibrated correctly, right? The engine system instruments aren't really displaying what they should be, right? If I have a full collective in, my torque reading is going to be up like above 100. And then if I'm on the ground, it's going to be at like 20 or something, right? Also, if I bottom the torque out or bottom the collective all the way out, I should still be able to control the aircraft with the Cyclic, right? At least in lateral and longitudinal, or you know, roll and pitch axes, right? And I should still have yaw, but my rotor would shoot up, right? If I dropped the collective all the way to the ground, my rotor would just, right? Because at that point, you're no longer sucking in air from the top of the rotor disc down through. It's going the other way, right? You're gonna have an updraft, and that updraft is gonna cause the rotor to auto-rotate, right? That's what we call it. We call it auto-rotation. You can actually do it in an airplane too, believe it or not. The whole airplane will just spin out of control, but yeah, so that a couple little things like that like it's not really gonna require a whole lot of big fixes. So anybody from Miltech, if you want, like, reach out to me. I'll tell you more in depth how you can make this thing like a whole lot better with, I think, just a little bit of work. But you can see some of the work, and I think if we could fix those little things, this would be easily a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. All right, because of just what you get. I mean, all the work they did modeling and putting all these crazy liveries and different variants, like, it's really cool. It's a really cool aircraft. And again, I haven't even scratched the surface. I think there's like a whole thing with a whole mission thing that, like, you can do all kinds of missions with this thing. I haven't even started with that yet. And to be honest, I haven't played with Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 enough yet to really get solid with the whole mission system. I did like a very basic beginner thing in the little Cessnas and all that, but I just haven't had the time to devote to it. But certainly in the future, I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos with this thing because it's the detail that they put into it is staggering. And some of these liveries look totally badass, right? Like this one right here is amazing, you know. So I might crank this one up here as I log off from this video and go fly this thing around and check it out. And again, I can't wait to learn how to use the FLIR and all these things, these cargo hooks and stuff that I haven't, or the hoists and everything that I've never used before. So it's gonna be really cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope there's like some firefighting missions, because that would be freaking awesome. I would love to do some Bambi buckets or something with this, like out in California or something. So definitely a lot more videos to come with this, and great job, Miltech. You guys did a really awesome job. I think there's just a few things in there that are kind of annoying. The run-up procedure and a couple things that I think would be really easy to fix. You know, that little standby altimeter going crazy. I think that's just like a 0 that needs to be added or deleted from the code. And, you know, these little things like that, they're going to make this thing like a 10 out of 10. But more than anything, I hope you guys can just make the aircraft more responsive to cyclic inputs, because it's handling like it's a 747 right now, and it's not. It's a Black Hawk. These things are incredibly responsive. So more than anything, if they could just fix that, that would put me up to like an 8 out of 10 on the aircraft, right? Maybe even a 9. And then those other little things are really minor, right? So, well, cool. Thanks for watching. And again, like I said, I'm going to have a lot more videos with this thing in the near future. I'm going to try to put more regular videos out on the channel, and I've been really waiting for. It's been really cool flying the Black Hawk in DCS, but I've really been waiting for one that I could fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because now we have the whole world where we can go fly this thing, and I can replicate some of the cool things I used to do in Europe and elsewhere. I can show you guys some of the more fun spots I've flown. Maybe I'll recreate my flyover of the FSU stadium that I did a couple of years ago. Maybe I'll recreate that in Microsoft Flight Simulator and put like a side-by-side from the actual footage and see what it looks like. So, also I heard a while ago they may decide to make a UH-60 out of this, which would be really awesome. That would be just icing on the cake if they could ever do that. So awesome. Well, cool. And Miltech, thanks a lot for the mod. It was gracious of you guys to send it to me. I wish I could have got this out a few days ago, but I got it the day before it released, and you know, I did my best here. This is as soon as I could get a video out. But so awesome job, and looking forward to some updates in the future. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and definitely pick this thing up. I know right now I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, but I think it's definitely worth the money for what you're getting, and hopefully if they can just make some quick updates, it's gonna be freaking awesome. So awesome. Hey, Snak Pak out.